The hero's mansion bursts into flames, and he and Elira escape. The Earl screams and orders everyone to put out the fire, but the servants shoot for freedom and run away. Jake assumes that it is a demon attack. Just then, a blue light approaches them at high speed. Jake tries to attack it by throwing his sword, but it is useless. They dodge the blue light, and Elira plans to fight back. She chants and summons the ruler of tempests, asking it to fight the demon. It easily smacks the demon away. Elira hopes it is over because she can't manage to keep the summon for too long. However, the demon still gets up, appearing slower this time. Just then, Maina and Ranian arrive. Maina asks if the spirit is hers, but Elira denies it. Ranian recognizes the blue light as Gria's god. The demon explodes, and Ronan explains that a demon had wiped out a stronghold before. The others dismiss his words, but Renena claims that it was just the god who died. Just then, a colossal demon appears named Gria of the Wandering Blade. The demon flies out of the portal and lets out a fiery breath that destroys forests and mountains. The Earl's mansion and the fields around it are destroyed, and everyone runs away. Gria notices them and unleashes a fiery breath in their direction. Maina gets hit, but when she thought she was dead, she noticed the micro bikini shielding her from the attack. She feels conflicted, though Elira and Jake ask how Maina obtained such a powerful artifact. She claims that she got it from a spirit she summoned. Meanwhile, Jinkum can't sleep thinking about Maina wearing the micro bikini. He grabs an energy drink and falls asleep, but just then he gets summoned to the other world. Elira looks at him with doubt. Gria keeps attacking random areas in the mountains. Elira wonders why such a powerful demon appears in their place, and Ranian claims that Gria appears whenever there is a threat to the demons. Everyone looks at Elira, and she gets mad. She asks Maina to do something about her spirit. Jinkyang wakes up, and he sees new faces. Jin Kyung widens his eyes, seeing Elira. Sorry, it was the Earl in a micro bikini that he saw. He cries and slurs at the Earl. Maina claims that they use the defensive power to protect the Earl, but Ji Kong exclaims that it only works on girls and asks to get rid of the hideous beast in front of him. Jake takes away the crying girl, and Maina cries because her life is now ruined. Maina tries to ask Jean Kim for help, but he looks dead while crying. Maina apologizes to Elira and claims that she should fight instead because she is the best summoner. Ranian flinches, and Elira gets mad. Ranian criticizes Elira for hiding the fact that she is the best summoner. Elira claims she can't go find in the north because she is a noble running land. She criticizes them as peasants who didn't protect the north properly and didn't have talents in summoning. She calls everyone useless, and Maina apologizes for being talentless and a burden. Elira condemns Maina even more. Jean Kong interferes and asks what Maina is doing. Jinkum gulps down the energy drink he brought over and exclaims that Maina is not talentless because she summoned him. She asks why Maina is kneeling in front of a selfish brat. She scolds her and tells her that she should show some dignity and never bow to anyone again. He gags, and a bright light comes out of his mouth. Jin Kyung propels upward and releases a bright light. Gria notices him and attacks with a fiery breath. Jin Kyung receives the attack but throws it back to Gria. Gria dodges, and the ball of fire explodes in the night sky. Ronan and Elira are shocked to see a weird spirit. An overactive Jinkum then attacks Gria, but the demon flies higher. Jin Kong pursues him, and Gria tries to attack him, but Jin Young dodges all of Gria's attacks. Feeling threatened, Gria opens its scales and fires off multiple shots at Jin Kyung. Jin Kyung dodges everything and approaches Gria's eyes. Jin Kyung gets near and lightly punches Gria's eyes. Gria's body starts rumbling, and its colossal body explodes in the night sky. Jin Kyung lightly falls from the sky, and Maina tries to wake him up, but Jin Kyung is just sleeping while mumbling. Ranian exclaims that Jin Kim is the world's savior, even though he looks creepy and like an embarrassment. Maina knows Jin Kyung is special. Ranian kneels and begs Maina to help them in the north with her overwhelming power. Maina is surprised that it was not her power but Jin Kyung's. Ranian claims that she summoned the strongest spirit, meaning she is the best summoner around. He reminds her of Jin Kyung's words about having dignity. Maina says she is not sure if she can do it, but she'll go and help them. Maina thanks Jin Kyung for giving her courage. At another time, Jin Kyung realizes that going outside is nothing compared to fighting huge monsters. He finally gets the courage to go outside and greet the janitor, But just then, the janitor turns into the Earl, and Jin Kyung wakes up from the nightmare. Maina greets him, and Jin Kim doesn't remember much after drinking the energy drink. He recalls getting overwhelming power, and Maina tells him that he was sleeping for 2 days. He swears not to drink it again. Maina plans to undo the summons, but Jin Kyung asks to go out first. He looks at her with the scenery, and he is amazed by it. He asks how the boat is flying, and Ranyan appears to introduce himself and explain that the airship is using mana. Jin Kyung thought the mana in this world was gone, but Ronan explains that there is still some circulating in the atmosphere, enough to invoke certain spells. However, the ship is equipped with an item created by alchemists called Shulkin, which is constantly absorbing mana from the atmosphere and storing extra mana. Mana looks to the side and observes Benny in a flashback. Alira tells him to join Maina and that he might have a chance to change his status from slave to commoner. Hours later, they arrive at the king's castle, and Jin Kyung is amazed to see a castle floating in the sky. They ride an elevator after docking the ship. Ranyan explains that the king built the castle in the sky to avoid demon attacks. Maina realizes that the castle is the cause of the depleting mana in the world. Ranyan warns her not to say her opinion in the castle. They arrive at the throne room, and the king greets them. Jin Kyung stares blankly, and the king asks who he is. Ranyan explains that Jin Kyung is his summoned spirit, Duke Kalinik. Alira's father arrives and confirms that Alira sent them out. Jin Kyung continues staring at them and calls out to the king. They are surprised, and Jin Kyung applauds that the king passed his test. Everyone awkwardly laughs and claps, and the king gets flustered. The woman next to the king says that Jin Kyung is just impressed. He asks them when they are leaving for the north. After that, the dukes have a secret conversation about tricking and replacing the king. Jin Kyung, Maina, and Benny set out toward the north with no money and no guards. Benny calls the king an idiot and mentions that the nobles are planning something. Maina warns him and asks Jin Kyung what to do next. Jin Kyung thinks it is the perfect setup to overthrow the playboy king. A red-haired woman appears while laughing and tries to talk to Maina. Jin Kyung claims that she can't fool him based on his experience of watching too much anime. He knows that the hooded person is the red-haired woman next to the king. She kneels and apologizes, handing over some things given by the king. Later, the king is surprised that Jin Kyung saw through everything, including the political issues and his act of being a fool. Ranyan adds further that Jin Kyung has been summoned for several days already and was able to single-handedly destroy the undefeated Gria. The king is glad that someone powerful is on his side. Meanwhile, Jin Kyung says that finding out the cause of demon attacks is their main quest. That night, they arrive at an inn for a meal. They check their map and plan to ride a boat in Sharia. Jin Kyung wants to go with them, but he needs to prepare some things first. Maina offers to undo the summons, and Jin Kyung disappears. People notice Maina and Benny while chatting with a waiter. Some men observe them, and they go out. Maina tries to buy food, but then she notices her money is missing, and 2 men walk away laughing. Later, the 2 camps around Sai, and many comment that Maina will be the cause of the country's demise. Meanwhile, Jin Kyung returns to Earth. He hears his father shouting and banging on his door. As he tries to open it, he gets pushed by the forcefully opened door. His father shouts and asks what Jin Kim is doing. His father scolds Jin Kyung for locking himself in his room without eating. They have been knocking for hours, which is why he is furious. Jin Kyung's mother tells him to calm down and that she'll talk with Jin Kyung. Jin Kyung's father goes out to smoke and complains about having a son like Jin Kyung. Jin Kyung's mother is worried that he hasn't eaten for the past 2 days. Just then, she notices bread and realizes that Jin Kyung claims he is doing something important and asks to be left alone. His parents are distressed, and Jin Kyung complains about getting hurt in this world. Meanwhile, Maina and Benny have been traveling for 4 days on foot. Benny complains about not getting a carriage, and Maina complains that Benny bought a fishing rod but he can't catch a fish. Maina grabs the fishing rod and immediately catches a fish. She complains about being a good farmer and fisherman. They cook the fish and make a cot. Just then, the whole area trembles, and a demon passes by their camp. Benny panics and finds the fish they were cooking, but a woman steps on it. The woman notices them and asks what they are doing. Maina tells her that they are on their way to the port city. The woman tells them not to camp near the river to avoid demons. Just then, One of her men calls her Captain aka and reports that the beast is coming back. She orders everyone to attack the demon. Maina tells Benny to take a look, and she sees Benny crying over the crushed raw fish. Later, the demon comes back, and aka pulls up an arrow. She fires the arrow and hits the demon's eye. The demon tumbles forward, but she pulls out her sword and slices the demon in half. Then he asks if it was magic, but Maina notices something about AK's sword. Later that afternoon, AK welcomes Maina and Benny to their camp. AK claims that they exist to protect people. Benny asks Maina to make AK and her team volunteer for their mission. Maina asks if she used magic earlier, but AK explains that it was the dagger she used. Maina asks if it was the shulkin. AK asks why Maina knows alchemy. AK explains that it only stores mana to create a magic blade, but it takes a day to recharge it. AK's companion mentions that AK can also kill demons with a normal blade. The two decide to tell AK about their mission. They ask AK to assist them in going to the north. They ask the two kids not to play around. Just then, Maina brings out the royal command order and asks them to assist the expedition to the north against the demon attacks. She orders on behalf of the King of Gorva. AK recognizes the royal command seal. Meanwhile, Jin Kyung locks himself in his room. He notices the tag shining, but nothing is happening. Back in the other world, Maina gets tied up to a pole while Aika is asking her why they are going up north. Maina answers that they need to find out why the demons are attacking. Aika slaps her and claims that she doesn't trust the foolish king. Maina wants to mention the king's real facade and the noble's corruption, but she can't put it into words. Aika tells her that she also went to the north before she was tasked with delivering documents to the king. But the king's men ambushed them, and she lost her comrades and her left eye. She burns the royal order and realizes why her eye is hurting more than usual. Just then, one of her men reports that a huge demon is on its way to the camp. They see a colossal demon, and Aika remembers encountering it in the north. It is the Lord of the Wall and the Master of Gria. She wonders why Kaltovia has come to their location. Maina asks her to let her go, claiming to have defeated Gria, so she can defeat Kaltovia. Meanwhile, Jin Kyung is now doing the daily licking of his favorite figurine. Just then, the tag glows, and Jin Kyung disappears. Will Jin Kyung be able to beat the demon with his favorite figurine? If you want another part of the recap of this manhwa, comment below, like this video, subscribe for more content like this, and see you next time.